If I had a nickel for every time I played a game, loved it so much it made it on my list of favorite games of all time, and then, out of curiosity, I played the previous entry in the series and walked away incredibly disappointed in the experience, I would have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, etc, etc, etc. If you've watched my Saints Row 2 review, and statistically speaking, you have, then you will know that Saints Row 2 is firmly placed in my top 20 favorite video games of all time. You might also know that the video was originally going to be a retrospective of the entire Saints Row franchise, but I couldn't help but gush about 2, so I ended up just making it its own separate video. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that me bitching about the third one will definitely have to be its own separate video. So, congratulations! You get a video series talking about each Saints Row game rather than one long one. I hope you like your gift because I didn't get you a birthday present this year. Sorry about that. If you've come to this video looking for a clean perspective and critique about the first Saints Row game with absolutely no comparison to its hotter, better, younger sister, I am going to try my damnedest to oblige. But going into this, you have to understand my experience playing this game. Since I started with the second one, going to the first one afterwards just shone a light on all the great features that the series later included, which makes the lack of features in the first one rather jarring. I know, it's not fair to compare them like that. All in all, the first game is a very solid skeleton that will one day be fleshed out into something amazing. But it is a skeleton. I'm going to do my best to judge Saints Row 1 on its own merits and pretend for most of this video that 2 doesn't exist. That being said, I do want to address the most jarring difference between SR's 1 and 2 because it's what slaps you in the face upon first boot up. If I don't address it, it will be an elephant in the room throughout most of my footage, and that's the character creation. I would like to remind you that SR2 had one of the best character creators I've ever seen. I knew going into it that I didn't have the varied gender options that 2 does. You can only create a, presumably, cis male. I tried my best to fight this restriction by making the prettiest, most feminine man at the ball, but it's honestly impossible. I was having enough difficulty making sure he didn't look like a fucking thumb. So instead, I opted to create the world's most perfect man. I swear I went to college with this guy. Luckily, that is the biggest difference I saw from a pure gameplay perspective. The mechanics are damn near identical to its sequel, just without a lot of the quality of life improvements. As a result, I will almost certainly be repeating points that I made in my SR2 video. If you've watched that video, and again, we've already established that you definitely have, don't hate me too much for a little bit of copying, pasting, and rewording on this paper. Just like I did with all of my English papers in college because I never read any of the books. Why, yes, I did fail all of my English classes. Why do you ask? Look, it's not plagiarism if you're plagiarizing yourself, okay? So H-Bomber Guy doesn't have to send the hit squad after me for this one. Now that we've gotten that comparison out of the way, let's talk about the other major comparison that comes packaged for free with this one. My SR2 video was titled Not Another GTA Clone, implying that it's far more than just a Grand Theft Auto knockoff. But without the quality of life improvements I mentioned earlier that gave it so much more of a fun edge and personality, SR1 has a slightly harder time shaking off that accusation. One thing that has changed since I made that initial video is that I actually have played the GTA 3 trilogy. Granted, I haven't played a lot, but I have played some of each, so I feel like I can come from a little bit more of a firm stance on this when I say, yeah, Saints Row 1 is kind of a GTA clone. Sorry, guys. It's still good, and I would still rather play Saints Row any day of the week, but just because Quake and Marathon were a lot different from Doom, it doesn't mean that people weren't calling them Doom clones when they first came out. But I don't want to just call it a GTA clone and then call it a day. I like to think I'm a lot more professional than that. Wait, making videos isn't my profession, so I guess I could. Nah. Let's go over the main gameplay of Saints Row, and you can sound off in the comments just how much of a f***ing mother and with sugar on top I am for having dared compare these two franchises. Progressing through the game revolves around finishing various types of missions. Every time you finish a mission, you gain ownership of more and more neighborhoods in Stillwater. By expanding your territory, enemy gangsters will spawn less and less, and your own allied saints spawn more and more. In addition to these main story missions, you will also be assaulting enemy bases. While they are technically optional, if you want the entire map to look purple by the end of the game, and you know you fucking do, you will be completing these as well. In order to do these missions and enemy bases, you will need to build up respect points by taking part in various activities scattered around the city of Stillwater. Activities such as drug running, demolition derbies, and rescuing prostitutes. While the activities are fun for the most part, it does kind of result in a weird disconnect where you've already taken down 2 rival gangs, but if you want to take on the last one, you have to first gain even more respect by taking part in tax fraud. One activity that you don't have to look for, but instead will find you, is contested neighborhoods. Until you fully eliminate a gang, they will occasionally attempt to take neighborhoods back from you, and will own it until you go in and clear them out. I admit, I'm of 2 minds about this mechanic. On the one hand, it makes the world feel a lot more alive, and like you're in a real gang war. The other gangs aren't just lying down and taking you bulldozing their shit in the harbor, they're fighting back. On the other hand, I was kind of in the middle of something, and now I gotta deal with this shit because apparently I'm the only saint who's capable of doing shit on their own. Once you've built up enough respect points and you start a mission, what that mission is going to ask you to do will vary wildly between mission goals, the difficulty, and level of bullshit. Meanwhile, most of the base assaults usually come down to charging in, guns blazing, and killing every motherfucker in the building. Which kind of brings us to one of the biggest sticking points of the game. Cause you see, the combat, as the Germans say, sucks ass. Controlling your character feels incredibly stiff, and the gunplay comes down to little more than point at enemy and bang 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 faster than they can bang bang bang. When they bang 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 you better, it won't take a lot for your health to drain almost completely. The game does very little to indicate that you're taking damage until you're already down to about 1/4 of your health. And if you're already that low, you're probably fucked. Combat just doesn't feel satisfying. I don't spend my hard-earned cash to get better weapons because it'll be more fun to use. I buy them so that I will hopefully not have to spend as long in combat next time around. The thing that saves the combat is how brick-dumb the enemy AI is. Fishes in barrels have more senses of self-preservation than these guys. I know of several times where my goal was to either kill everyone in an area or hold out for a set amount of time, and the strategy was always to find a comfortable spot, set up your reticle to headshot whoever comes around the corner, sip a latte, and wait. On the plus side, at least the on-foot combat is just kind of dull. It could be worse. It could be the vehicle combat. I want you to do something for me. I want you to rub your tummy. Good. Now start patting your head. Okay. Now start jumping up and down on 1 foot. All right. Now list all of the school teachers you ever had in alphabetical order. Does that feel awkward and difficult? It should. You look like a fucking idiot. It's also a completely accurate metaphor for how it feels driving and shooting at the same time. You have to accelerate, you have to dodge other cars, you have to aim, you have to shoot. While aiming, you have to make sure you're still driving in the correct direction despite the camera having to pull double duty. Your brain is pulled in so many different directions and it's discombobulating, and I'm not sure a single main mission that required it passed by without me shouting at least one expletive. I want to say that it's better if you have a passenger or a driver, because then you only need to focus on one thing, but well, have you ever played Halo single player, and you have the choice of either getting in the driver's seat or the gunner's seat, and you wonder specifically which hell you want to subject yourself to today? Do I want to drive around and have the person with the gun focus on a nearby shifty-looking squirrel instead of the person shooting at us? Or do I want to take the gunner position to make sure that we do hit the correct target, only to find the driver is secretly a blind giraffe and crashes into every wall they can find? When you're not forced to engage in combat, the driving itself is plenty fun. I do wish that motorcycles were available in this game though. Whenever I'm playing in an open world game, I always prefer driving a motorcycle. It makes getting from point A to point B way easier. It turns out you get to where you need to go a lot faster when you ignore all traffic laws. Why doesn't everyone do that? While driving around, you will, of course, have a wide range of music to listen to on the radio. It doesn't really have a lot of classic hits, I don't think. There was very little of the music that I really recognized, which I understand. I'm sure a lot of record labels wouldn't want to sell the rights to their music to a franchise that hadn't really been established yet. But something that I think Saints Row 1 actually does better than its sequel is that one of the radio stations is actually a talk radio station. They stopped having those in the series, and I honestly think they're poorer for it. I remember when I was younger and I first played this game, probably around 2009, I would mostly be on this channel because I thought it was a hilarious caricature of conservative talk shows.
Implanting a chip inside, you know, like in the back of the neck or in the forearm or maybe in the bicep, although I do not want in any way, shape, or form to have any illegal immigrants' lifting power to be in any way, shape, or form limited.
Impeded.
Yeah, impeded, limited. So maybe the bicep isn't a great idea, but somewhere.
I no longer think it is a hilarious caricature. Though the talk show isn't the only thing that I will say, full stop, is something that the original does over its sequel. The game's opening, I feel, is actually way more solid and does a better job of world building. It's at this point I will begin discussing the story of Saints Row 1. If everything I've said so far hasn't completely frightened you off and you're interested in playing the game blind, especially if you're a fan of the other games but haven't gotten around to playing this one yet, then go ahead and bail out now. The game opens by spotlighting all three gangs that you'll be fighting at once: the Vice Kings, the Carnales, and the Westside Rollers. Not only does it introduce all three of them, it shows them interacting and beginning a street-side shootout with each other. This cutscene showcases the dynamic and ruthless city that you'll be entering momentarily. Try as I might, I cannot think of a single time in the sequel in which any of the gangs interacted with each other. The only other gang that they came in contact with was yours. But here, you're seeing firsthand that you're stepping into a full-on gang war, as opposed to the sequel, which feels a little bit more like,
"This is not war, this is pest control!"
And while you don't see the gangs interact again after this cutscene, the other gangs are still mentioned as threats or thorns in each other's sides. They're just obviously more preoccupied by the asshole who is currently wrecking their shit like a bullet hurricane. But in order to become that force of nature, you first have to survive the first couple of minutes during this drive-by. Luckily, you're saved at the last second by a 3rd Street Saint named Troy, and no one else. And you're encouraged to join the Saints to try and help clean up the streets from all the gang violence. I guess here, clean up the streets from gang violence means cause a lot more gang violence. What's the old phrase? Fighting for peace is like fucking for virginity. I do like that in the story, the 3rd Street Saints are meant to be the good guys, trying to make the city a better place by opposing all the evil drug-pushing, carjacking, and gun-running gangs. But the fact that you become an agent of chaos that blows shit up when you're bored doesn't quite fit that image. So in the sequel, they lean into that cognitive dissonance by making you, canonically, a goddamn psychopath. Since, unfortunately, the 3rd Street Saints don't have a leader, it's up to you to work with the lieutenants of the group to bring the other gangs down. We've got Johnny Gat, that old lovable rapscallion with a heart of gold that he likes to beat people to death with. He's put in charge of taking down the Vice Kings. Dex, who is kind of like Pierce, if Pierce was cool and had charisma. He's got a plan for everything, like how to take out the Carnales. Lynn, who is currently working undercover with the Westside Rollers to take them down from the inside. And Troy, who was originally assigned to the Vice Kings, but backs out and is going to help Dex. And that's pretty typical Troy behavior. You could say he's always causing a bother. We are allowed to tackle the gangs in any order we want. And since the game's tutorial has us liberate a neighborhood owned by Los Carnales, they seem as good a place as any to start.
I ain't worried about the history so much as I am the fact that A, the Lopez brothers are crazy motherfuckers, and B, Victor, their enforcer, survived a dozen VK drive-bys. Sounds pretty bad, right? Now add in that the Carnales are backed by the largest drug cartel in the world, and I think you'll understand why we're gonna play this safe instead of pulling a Johnny. We cut off their income first, then we go for Hector. Sound good? That was a rhetorical question, but thanks for your support.
Alright, first gang, let's take down the Los Carnales.
The Carnales.
What?
Rio Grande River. Jesus.
What the fuck?
It's not the Los Carnales, it's just the Carnales. Los means... fuck it.
I think Dex might be my favorite character in the first game. He's smart, he's tactical, and he's not willing to put up with Johnny's shit. He's at least a better tactician than Troy, whose strategies are crap and bad. That being said, I think he has a tendency to overthink things. For example, instead of attacking a factory guns blazing, he instead decides that we need to attack a different group of Carnales, steal their truck, have it fixed up, drive into the factory, and then charge in guns blazing. Not to quote the gun-toting psychopath named Johnny Gat, but,
Hold up, man. I mean, I love the dream house you built here and everything. But what if we just start here, walk into the casino, and just shoot all the motherfuckers that are between us and the money?
Well, you know...
It would be a lot faster.
And a lot more fun.
Yeah, but...
Fuck it. Let's go. Good call, Johnny.
a pattern that starts in this game that I didn't realize continues into 2 is my favorite lieutenant being in charge of taking down my least favorite gang. The Lopez brothers are... how do I put this? They're a little, what was I talking about? Oh, right, Los Carnales. Sorry, I forgot they existed halfway through my sentence. The leader, Hector, has a cool scar and is typically much more level-headed than his quick-to-temper brother, Angelo. And that's to say nothing about their bruiser, Victor. And I mean that literally. I have nothing to say about him. He's only in 3 cutscenes before we blow up his truck with him in it. But I mean, you know, it could be worse. He could be Hector, who's only in 2. The main focus on this plotline is how Los Carnales are trying to score a deal with a Colombian drug cartel, which we repeatedly fuck up. But I'm getting ahead of myself. After Dex's Trojan horse strategy goes off without a hitch and we take away a big chunk of their drug operation, we take down a couple more of their strongholds, and then we head over to... Am I in 28 Days Later? Where the hell are all the cars? There's never anyone around to steal from when you need them. Anyway, the Colombians come to Stillwater to iron out the deal between them and Los Carnales, and we're going to crash that meeting with... Oh no. No, 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 not this mission! Oh, fuck this mission! You want to make a Saints Row fan have a Nom flashback? Just say the phrase, McManus says hello. Look, I like sniper missions. Sniper rifles are typically my favorite weapon in any given shooter I'm playing. The ghillie suit mission is the best part of the original Modern Warfare. But what's not fun is when you're supposed to be doing a stealth mission and fire a single shot, and not only does every motherfucker in the tri-state area and the mothers that they're fucking know where you are, but each have pinpoint accurate aim with rocket launchers. I've played through this game a couple of times at this point, so I know that you should duck behind the roof every other second to avoid the volley of rockets aimed straight at the left freckle under your left eye. But I can see someone absolutely being bombarded by this volley and saying fuck it and turning the game off. The fact that it is coupled with constant screen shakes that make aiming a mess, and the constant smoke from the explosions making it a mess you have to wait for, and that this is the mission in which you unceremoniously kill Hector, makes this one of the worst missions in the game. But it's not the worst. No. The worst mission in the game comes immediately afterwards, where you have to run away from not only an army of Los Carnales, but Victor, who is running around in a souped-up truck that is way faster than you. Getting away from him is damn near impossible, what the fuck? That is genuinely the first time I have ever beaten that mission on my first try. Last time I played this game, I had to mod my car with fucking nitro to even stand a chance. But now that I'm trying to make a video, suddenly it's no big deal. Shit. I was kind of counting on that for the segment. Maybe the point being made is that the driving combat depends so much on luck that it's a complete roll of the die that this ever happens? Yeah, sure, that sounds good, let's go with that. To try and undermine Los Carnales' deal with the Colombians, we set up a meeting with them and they agree to work with us exclusively if we can get the drugs that have already been seized by the police back. Troy suggests a plan that will let us blow a hole in the evidence locker, get in, get the drugs, and get out with the minimal amount of bloodshed. That's our Troy. He always cares about body counts. Although, I'm not sure the intended effect is really made here. By the end of the mission, you killed an entire... A drove? Huh. I did not know that. By the end of the mission, you've killed an entire drove of cops, so I sure do hope that Troy is in the mood for a crispy-ass bacon. With his family dead, his gang falling apart, his girlfriend possibly leaving him, and his business deal with the Colombians fallen through, Angelo decides to try to skip town. It's our job to shoot down his plane while riding shotgun to decks, driving around like a kid who's never taken a single driving lesson, but who has played a lot of Vice City. And I think this mission is a good example of probably one of my biggest issues with the mission setups in this game. More often than it should, a lot of the missions in this game are very trial and error. In order to overcome a certain obstacle, you need to know that it's coming ahead of time. Case in point, Dex will be doing his best Stillwater drift, and oh hey, would you look at that, a bunch of dudes randomly placed around the airport with rocket launchers. I had to redo this mission so many times, memorizing where each one was going to be and pray to God I could actually hit the guy. Yes, before you start commenting, I know, they have exploding barrels next to them which are easier to hit than they are, but A, I didn't notice them at first, so shut up, and B, that doesn't change the fact that Dex is driving around like there's a fucking tiger in his passenger seat, and I have to know where to move the camera before the enemy even appears. But we managed to finally finish off the Carnales, and quite frankly, thank fuck it's over. So many of the missions were pains in the ass. I remember the Vice Kings and Westside Rollers being easier than Los Carnales. Although, come to think of it, I don't think I actually remember anything from the Rollers, which sounds like as good a reason as any to tackle them next.
Lynn!
Take a deep breath and count to 10, Donnie.
Count to 10? You just shot my girl!
Yes, it's tragic.
The Westside Rollers missions mostly revolve around cars. Makes sense, it's kind of their thing, it's in the name, but driving around so much in the missions, I recurrently had two thoughts. One, my kingdom for a motorcycle, and two, and I do hate repeating myself, but man, driving combat sucks. If I was providing an accurate account of my time playing this section of the game, I would pause every third word to yell, "Fuck!" But that flows horribly, so I'll leave it to you to pause every couple of seconds and input the fucks where you feel is appropriate. In case you need a reminder, one of the lieutenants, Lynn, is working undercover with the Rollers, and we're using her to undermine their operations. To start with, we steal their cars, load them with explosives that go off if they hit the NOS, and then challenge them to a race with Troy as our passenger. Next, we try to get in good with one of the leaders of the Rollers named Price, by staging an assault on Donnie, his best friend and mechanic. Then Lynn will swoop in, save him, and get them back to the safety of Price's manor. Although, after Lynn successfully saves Donnie, we start chasing after her, which feels counterproductive since we want her to get away, but it's fine. I'm sure it's the only time we'll compromise her cover. Lynn makes contact with Price, but it's clear that his uncle, Sharp, is the one who's really calling the shots around here. Price looks like he does steroids and acts juvenile, while Sharp is cold and calculating. And... oh, fuck me, I am in love with this man's voice.
So your plan is to go steal cars. You really know how to think outside the box, Donnie.
Don't talk to him like that.
I'll take your advice to heart.
It's not advice.
A threat? How refreshing.
He's played by David Carradine, whom you probably know as Bill from Kill Bill, and whose voice you might know as Clockwork from Danny Phantom. I could easily listen to him talk for hours. His voice is great comfort in this cutscene, as it is a scene that leads into this fucking mission. You have to defend several trucks that the Rollers are trying to attack, and the normal amount of juggling now has another ball thrown in. Because car combat while driving is hard enough, precise car combat, where you have to specifically destroy some cars, but not others, makes me want to rip this cheap-ass controller in half like a piece of paper! I'm fine, I'm good, I'm fine, how are you? I'm fine. Once we finish mission after mission of undermining the rollers using information that only the people in the room discussing it would know, someone's brain cell hits the corner of the screen and they realize that Lynn is selling them out. Just saying, maybe we could have let them get away with a couple of their schemes so it wouldn't be so consistent and obvious? No? Alright. They kidnap her and force her to call you into an ambush.
Look at you. All tied up pretty as a present. I think it's time to unwrap you.
I think I might have to take back my feelings about this guy's voice. I'm suddenly very uncomfortable. I like how all of the missions for the rollers have been going off without a hitch. Complete and total fucking bullshit notwithstanding. And it makes you and Lynn feel confident enough to let your guard down. But then your rescue mission for Lynn after the ambush results in a pretty significant loss. And I mean that in every sense of the word.
Stay calm. We're gonna get out of this. I think I found my lighter. Did you hear that asshole, Donnie? He said I was his girl.
I kind of hate to admit this, but I gotta be honest. Lynn's death never really clicked with me emotionally. Maybe it's different for you, and if it is, I can understand why, but her death never felt like as much of a heavy tragedy to me as a different death from a different game that I promised not to mention. I think the thing that holds me back from fully getting emotional about this scene is that I have a few too many questions. You and Lynn are both in the exact same perilous situation. From what I can tell, Sharp shoots both of you. You're both tied up and both dumped into the river, and yet you managed to escape. What scenario leads to Lynn's death and not yours? Or a better way of phrasing it, what scenario leads to you being alive and not Lynn? You seem to be able to walk away from it with little more than a blinking red health bar. That being said, the scene does a good job of conveying how cold and heartless Sharp is, and killing him shortly afterwards does feel righteous. Price is somehow upset that we have killed his uncle and kicked his entire gang's ass, so we get into a big climactic driving battle. We drive completely alone and take out Price's entire convoy of cars. And it really does feel like the climax of the Rollers storyline, considering how badly we kicked both of their leaders' asses and took over all of the Rollers' territory. So when Price calls me on my phone and calls me out for a mano-a-mano fight, I really just want to tell him to fuck off. He's got no leg to stand on. The Rollers are done. But he does insult my balls, so, you know, he's gotta die. He comes at you with a big truck carrying cars and keeps throwing grenades at you. And in one of my attempts at this mission, I blew up at the exact same time I blew him up, and ties should count, damn it! I have mixed feelings about the Rollers storyline. On the one hand, it's full of car combat, which I think I've accurately conveyed how much it makes me want to have a bowl of nails without any milk for breakfast. But between Lynn's undercover work, her death, and Sharp being a fucking Bond villain, I'd say that it definitely has more going for it in the story department than Los Carnales did. It might be the best of the three. Although, I say that, but I remember Vice Kings being my actual favorite from the last time I played it, so let's go ahead and wrap up this story summary with them, shall we?
The Vice Kings are named after one guy, Benjamin King. And that shit don't happen unless you're a professional or a badass. And in King's case, he's both.
The Vice Kings storyline gives us the chance to spend time with fan-favorite character Johnny Gat, and my favorite character, Dex. We also spend time with Aisha, Johnny's girlfriend and R&B singer. Aisha is cool. She used to be from the Row, but moved on when she had the opportunity to follow her dreams. You can tell she has a really good head on her shoulders. And always will. The first mission of this arc is rescuing Aisha's sister and some other women who were being kidnapped by the Vice Kings. Although, I'm not entirely sure why they needed my help. They're fucking packing and enter the fight the moment we start escaping from where they're being kept. They seem perfectly capable of getting the hell out on their own. The second mission involves faking Aisha's death so she'll be able to get out of her record deal owned by the Vice Kings. The plan to do this is to load her car up with explosives, drive her to her recording session, and then blow the building up. Feels like that's a little excessive, but if there's 3 words that describe Jonathan Gatt, it's a little excessive. Trouble is, right after getting the car loaded with explosives, you are hounded by one of Aisha's stalkers. And I don't know if this dude has a high-powered magnet in his front bumper or what, but it took me several tries to finally shake him off. For only being the second mission in this set of missions, it feels a little needlessly difficult. It's shortly after this that we're introduced to the leadership of the Vice Kings. Tanya, a woman who is played by Mila Kunis and who has both of the other lieutenants wrapped around her finger. Warren, a hothead who's only ever yelling about killing the Saints in whatever scene he's in. Tony, a guy who I always forget exists until this cutscene. And Benjamin motherfucking King, a guy who is somehow even cooler than Sharp, and who is also played by a famous actor. And that famous actor is Michael Clark Duncan, so you know his voice is like honey.
I'll have Monroe put some pressure on the Saints. While they're distracted, it should be easy to take back what's ours. Everything else is business as usual. Understood? Now, this meeting is over.
We eventually assault a VK base and have Tanya dead to rights until... I said I have Tanya dead to rights until... Hey, Tanya, you good? Okay, you're good. I have Tanya dead to rights until Tony shoots Johnny's leg and manages to kidnap him. After spending a lot of time pretending to be Tanya's chauffeur and driving her around town, you then follow her up to her penthouse where Johnny is being kept and knock her out before rescuing him. Why we couldn't just wait for her at the penthouse and, more importantly, kill her when we get there is something only the player character knows, and he ain't talking. With Johnny back and Dex assisting us, we can redouble our efforts to take down the Vice Kings.
Well, that sounds like a plan to me.
Yeah, a shitty one, as your whack-ass robo-leg clearly proves.
Oh, fuck you.
Next time you try that cowboy shit, you might not walk away at all.
No, seriously. Fuck you.
So, they're gonna bang now, right? 'Cause, like, I cannot be the only one who's feeling the sexual tension here. Dex has a plan to disguise ourselves as VKs and cause as much havoc as we can and get the police bringing the hammer down on the wrong gang. Also, Dex says this.
Look, I worked out a plan that will hurt the Kings and put minimum risk on you.
How much murdering do I get to do?
None.
Your plan blows.
And not to criticize Dex's strategizing again, but look, it's not my fault, okay? Again, much like in real life, the cops very rarely do their job correctly, and it took me way too long to get my notoriety up. I'll be the first to admit that the baseball bat was a little excessive. Making the Vice Kings look bad has shaken up the leadership somewhat. Killing some of the leadership might also have done that, but we finally come to probably my favorite scene in the game, and the one I think of the most when I think about this game.
If you hadn't wasted our time sticking your nose up them white boys' asses, we could have owned the whole damn game by now.
I told you before, we ain't getting into that shit.
And why the fuck not? That's where the money is. Man, if you got down with that shit back in the day, the Carnales would have been ghosts right now. But you didn't, did you? You were too much of a pussy then, and you're too much of a pussy now. Fuck!
You forgot who you talking to. My name is Benjamin motherfucking King. I'm the man who took my crew from being a bunch of baby gangsters in Sunnyvale to being one of the most influential and feared forces in the goddamn city. You know how I did that? I said, you know how I did that?
Mr. King?
I did it by knowing when it was time to build, when it was time to watch, and when it was time to act. I'm through carrying your punk ass. If I were you, I'd drop them damn flags and get the fuck out of here before I erase your ass.
I ain't going nowhere.
You ain't hearing me, son. I said...
Yo, fuck that. You ain't hearing me.
What is this?
I built, I watched, and now I'm acting.
No, it's not as dramatic as the scene I think about when I think about the second game, but damn, is it a fucking cool scene. For absolutely no reason at all, we decide to step in and save Ben King from being attacked by his crew and kill Warren in the process. Tanya takes the VKs over by force, and we work with King to topple his own empire. We do this in a mission where we get various groups of VKs to follow us into a cop ambush. And I'm not supposed to kill them for really good reasons that King just hasn't told me yet. So I guess the actual strategy is to just take their bullets while they're shooting you in your sedan. We find Tanya in her penthouse apartment and we do what we do best. Despite the fact that the Rollers have more capital M moments in it, I do believe that the Vice Kings are the best arc in this game. Ben King is probably the most interesting and fleshed out character in this game's whole cast. Plus, of all the arcs, I feel like this one's missions have the least amount of television-shattering bullshit, and I think that this gang is the best one to take on first. There's also another reason that I think this is the best one to start with. You may have noticed this on your own, but unlike the sequel, the player character in this game is a silent protagonist. I don't want to spoil the reason for you, just trust me, if you haven't played this game yet, I personally think that the best order to tackle these gangs in is Vice Kings, Los Carnales, and then finishing up with Westside Rollers. Once all the gangs have been defeated, we just have one short epilogue to go through. And we've finally done it. We've conquered all of Stillwater. And since there's still no leader for the 3rd Street Saints, you decide to step up and fine, I'll talk about Julius. Happy? For those of you who don't know, my most popular video on my channel has been my review of Saints Row 2. Often, when I'm talking with someone else about my videos, I refer to it as the video that I get comments on. One of the most frequent comments I get on that video was asking me why I did not talk about the optional secret missions in which you confront Julius, the former leader of the 3rd Street Saints. I actually have several reasons why I didn't. The first being, I actually don't talk about every single aspect of a game's story when I do my recaps. Partly for script flow, nothing would be more boring if I mentioned every single thing that happened. I call those and then scripts. And there wasn't really a good place to put it, but also partly because I always hope that my videos will inspire people to play the games themselves if it looks interesting to them. I go out of my way to not include everything so that there can still be fun moments and surprises for those players. Julius's secret missions are just that. Secret. Bonus. Not necessary for the overall story. The other, much bigger reason is because the mission where you confront Julius is only relevant to you if you've played through the first game and know what he did to you and who he is. Since I shot myself in the foot by starting with the second game in the series when talking about this franchise, I couldn't assume that everyone who watched the video also played the first game. In order for that audience to understand it, I basically would have had to have recapped all of Saints Row 1. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, I just finished doing. So let's talk about Julius. Julius Little is the leader of the 3rd Street Saints. He and Troy save you at the very beginning of the game, after which he recruits you into his gang and appoints his lieutenants to take on the different gangs. Sound familiar? If that doesn't, how about this?
Everybody listen up. We got some serious shit to discuss.
Listen up, people. I got some serious shit to discuss.
Shondi, you got the Sons of Samdi.
It's gotta be them.
Fuck you say?
It's cool. I got this.
Troy, you dealing with the Vice Kings.
Not a chance.
Fuck you say?
Anyone but them.
Once we're done here, talk to one of these guys. They'll have something for you to do.
Once we're done here, go talk to one of these guys. They'll have something for you to do. It's our time now. Let's get this shit started.
Julius seems to see the Saints as a healthy alternative to the various gangs around the city. An altruistic alternative. A street gang who protects the streets. There's just one teensy tiny problem. He's wrong. Over the course of the game, you have stolen from, blown up, and killed damn near half of Stillwater. You are a problem. You are an agent of chaos. He might not be able to control you. Okay, I tell a lie. He does have one other tiny problem. He's got a mole in pig's clothing working from the inside. I know, it's such a surprise that the guy named Troy ended up being a Trojan horse. But you know what they say, all cops can go fuck themselves. Once Julius is arrested, he cuts a deal so he can walk. All he has to do is take care of the rogue element and make sure all the purple flags in Stillwater are dropped. Julius interprets this, apparently, as blow us the fuck up alongside a mayoral candidate. Julius doesn't make another appearance unless you do the secret mission in 2, in which Dex, now working for Ultor, asks us to meet at the old church hideout. But when Julius arrives instead, we have a few choice words for him. But oh hey, look, Dex is doing his normal strategizing. The strategy here being kill 2 birds in 1 barrel. You work with Julius to repel the Ultor forces, and then you have your usual calm sit-down discussion with your old mentor.
Just like old times, player.
Yeah.
Jesus. I thought we were past this.
Not by a fucking long shot.
Don't you get it? The Saints didn't solve a goddamn thing. Drugs were still being pushed. Innocent people were still getting killed. All we did was turn into vice kings that wore purple.
Jesus Christ, you sound like a pussy.
I sound like someone who's not a sociopath.
You want to be the killer with a conscience? Fine. Drop your flags and write a book like King. But you never should have came after me.
You telling me, if I would have asked you to walk away, you would have said yes?
Fuck no, this is my city.
Jesus. You haven't learned a goddamn thing.
Wrong. I've learned that being in charge is better than being a bitch who keeps her mouth shut and does what she's told. Your time's over, old man.
What's happened to you?
I woke up.
You owe me, player. If it wasn't for me, you would have died on that street corner.
If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been in a goddamn coma.
But I guess that makes us even.
Not really.
I think probably one of the most interesting things about the Saints Row series, at least at first, is the showcase of the effects of cycles of violence. Julius tried to make the Saints a more altruistic gang that could protect people. But in order to do that, you had to do the exact type of base, extreme, deadly shit that all of them were doing to get their power, making you not only no better than them, but almost exactly the same, if not worse. Every single gang in Saints Row 1 went through the exact same beats in their story. There's a charismatic and respectable leader with a sexy voice, and probably played by someone famous, and then one of their lieutenants, loud, young, and proud as they are, end up taking over the operation once they are killed. Hector and Angelo, Sharp and Price, Ben King and Warren, Julius, and you. You are the hothead who takes over the Saints. Julius, unable to stop his gang from becoming what he tried so hard to fight against, did the only thing he could do. He tried to stop the cycle of violence before it could continue in the way it always does. He failed. After being used as a puppet by political powers in the city, you were invited on board a yacht to be threatened by the soon-to-be mayor, only for Julius to seemingly destroy you both in one fell swoop. And I'm not gonna lie, despite the fact that the sequel to this game is one of my favorite games of all time, part of me kind of wishes that this was a standalone game. Can you imagine playing this game for this long, building up your empire, making the city of Stillwater yours, and then having the ending just, boop, kill you like that? I know at the beginning of the second game, it's revealed that you've just been in a coma for somewhere between 2 and 175 years, but still, ending it like this would have been one hell of a way to put the period at the end of this story. Speaking of ending things, I suppose we should probably be wrapping this up, huh? Here's the problem I am currently facing. Saints Row is, by no stretch of the imagination, a bad game. It is a good game. The driving is fun, the characters are likable, and Stillwater feels alive, which is an aspect you kind of need in an open world game. The problem is, it is impossible for me to think of this game without thinking about its sequel, and thinking about its sequel makes me want to play its sequel. But Saints Row 2 couldn't have become such an all-timer if it didn't have such a solid base to build on. Is the fact that the only way to get respect points by clearing activities limiting and a bit tedious? Alright, Then let's add things you can do throughout the world so you can up your respect while doing other things. Is the character builder a bit sparse and damn near impossible to make someone that doesn't look like a thumb? Alright, then let's expand it and make one of the best damn character creators this side of Dragon Age Inquisition. Were some of the dramatic moments a bit dry? Well, then let's make one of the most dramatic and heart-wrenching death scenes that Kenzie specifically has ever seen in a video game and make her fucking cry. If anything, Saints Row 1 makes me appreciate Saints Row 2 even more than I already did. They say separation makes the heart grow fonder, and if you are without someone for a while, you'll realize just how much you needed them in your life. And I didn't realize just how much I needed motorcycles and streaking minigames. If you are interested in this game, I do highly recommend it. It's a good time. If you're interested in the game and you've only ever played the other games in the series, I still recommend it. I just recommend going into it with adjusted expectations. But man, with this solid foundation and the glory that was the second one, I really hope this series keeps its momentum going and continues to only get better and better. Fuck.